There it is, redemption for Golden State. One of the great playoff runs of all time is complete. The Warriors are NBA champions again.
The year is 2018, and the KD-led Golden State Warriors are fresh off winning a championship. After dominating through the 2017 playoffs, the Warriors are looking to replicate their dominance once again. They cruised through the first 2 rounds, defeating the Spurs 4-1 and defeating the Pelicans 4-1. So far, all is going as planned, but little did they know, they would face their biggest challenge to date, and arguably their biggest challenge during their dominant reign in the Western Conference Finals. This is the series where the greatest team of this generation was on the brink of getting eliminated by the 2018 Houston Rockets. Before we dive into this Western Conference Finals, let's take a look and really understand what made this Rockets team so deadly. Let's start at the top, with their head coach, Mike D'Antoni. Now, Mike D'Antoni, prior to coaching the Rockets, was famous for his creation of the 7 seconds or less offense, which was a term to represent the fast-paced offense of the 2006 to 2007 Phoenix Suns team, led by Steve Nash. This is the same system that led to Nash winning back-to-back MVP. When D'Antoni got to the Rockets, it was clear that his focus on offense was based on 3 things: three-pointers, layups, and free throws, especially three-pointers. In fact, the 2018 Houston Rockets ranked number 1 in the NBA in not only three-pointers attempted but also three-pointers made. Along with plenty of three-pointers was D'Antoni's heavy isolation-reliant offense, and luckily for D'Antoni, he had the perfect weapon for this style of play: James Harden. James Harden in 2018 was being talked about as one of the greatest scorers we have ever seen, and rightfully so, as he averaged a whopping 30.4 points, 8.8 assists, and 5.4 rebounds in 72 games in 2017-18, securing MVP of the league. James was the centerpiece of this offensive force, as he had the second highest usage rate in a single season at 40.3%, trailing only Russell Westbrook, who had a usage rate of 41.5 in 2016-2017. James also led the league in isolations this year with a frequency rate of 35%. For reference, the next highest was LeBron James at 24.4%. We can go on all day about how this style of play was perfect for James Harden, but what made this team so dangerous was the players around Harden. This Rockets team had a starting lineup in the playoffs of Chris Paul, James Harden, Trevor Ariza, PJ Tucker, and Capella. Due to Harden's ability to break down his primary defender and cause the defense to collapse, this led to wide-open and high-quality shots for Paul, Ariza, and Tucker. In fact, they all shot above 37% from 3 in the regular season, with Paul shooting 38%, Ariza shooting 37%, and Tucker shooting 37%. But now we also have to account for the reigning Sixth Man of the Year at the time, Eric Gordon. Eric was a key part of this team as he came off the bench and provided instant scoring. He shot 36% on nearly 9 three-pointers attempted during the regular season, while averaging 18 points per game. It's clear to see the offensive force this team was, but what made them so special was that they were almost just as good on defense. They ranked 6th in defensive rating that year. Outside of James, almost everyone on this team was known as a very solid defender. PJ Tucker brought a physical presence and defensive toughness to the team, often guarding the other team's best or second-best player on a nightly basis. Ariza was also a key force on defense as his versatility allowed him to guard multiple positions. Paul, while undersized, was a pain to deal with for other players as his quick hands, lateral quickness, and a high basketball IQ allowed him to stay in front of his man and contest shots. We can't forget about the big man in the middle, Clint Capella, who was a defensive force averaging 10.8 rebounds a game. Like the Warriors, the Rockets also cruised through the first 2 rounds with 4-1 series wins over the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Utah Jazz. Now came the Western Conference Finals, the series where 2 offensive powerhouses would collide. Game 1. Game 1 of this series went how much of the NBA world thought it would. Despite the Rockets having a home court advantage, the Warriors came into their house and won Game 1 by double digits, led by 37 points from KD, despite 41 points from Harden. Game 2. Game 2 may have surprised a lot of people out there, as the Rockets went on to win by 22 points with an all-around scoring effort, including 27 for both Harden and Gordon, as well as 22 from Tucker. The Warriors once again were led by KD with 38 points, but did not get much from the others, as Steph was the next leading scorer with only 16. Now the series is tied 1-1 going back to Golden State, and at this point, no one was really worried about the Warriors, as they had lost one game in the previous rounds too. Game 3. As expected from many, Game 3 was a Warriors blowout by a whopping 41 points, led by 35 points from Curry, and the Warriors looked like they were back on track to another 4-1 series win, but little did they know. This Rockets team had other plans. Game 4. Game 4 was a pivotal point in this series. If the Rockets lose this game, they would be down 3-1 and would almost certainly be eliminated. Game 4 was a nail-biter, and a 27-point effort from Paul along with 30 from Harden led to a Rockets 3-point road win. Despite 27 and 28 points from Durant and Curry, the Rockets' 1-2 punch really stepped up, including Tucker, grabbing a total of 16 rebounds this game, playing a game-high 44 minutes. The series, now tied 2-2, was the closest we had ever seen this Warriors team from being in trouble. To make matters worse for the Warriors, they now had to go back on the road with the risk of going down 3-2. Game 5. Game 5 was a game where we knew the Warriors would bounce back after suffering a home loss, but the Rockets took Game 5 by 4 points. What made this win even more impressive was the Rockets' win even with Harden going 0 for 11 from 3. Harden only finished with 19 points, but contributions from Paul, Gordon, Capella, and company helped the Rockets pull this one out. Durant, Curry, and Thompson would all go for over 20 points, but that would not be enough to overcome this hungry Rockets team. This was the first time the world had ever seen this version of the Warriors on the brink of elimination. Down 3-2 and just one loss away from their season being over, the Warriors had no choice but to come out firing in Game 6. But wait, everything was looking good for the Rockets being up 3-2, right? Let's rewind to Game 5 for a moment. With a minute to go in Game 5, Chris Paul would pull his hamstring. This would ultimately be the moment many would consider the turning point in the Rockets' chances at an upset. Game 6 rolls around and Paul is not in the lineup, so the Rockets are without their starting point guard. Harden goes for 32 points, but 35 points from Game 6 Klay, 29 from Curry, and 23 from Durant would be too much for this depleted Rockets team to handle. The Warriors would go on to win by 29 points, and now we have a Game 7 back in Houston. At this point, the question on everyone's mind is if Paul would be back for Game 7. Game 7. Game 7 rolls around, and it's a Monday night in Houston, and Paul is nowhere to be found in the starting lineup. The Rockets will have to take on this Game 7 again, without their starting point guard, who was huge in those Game 4 and 5 victories. The way this game would unfold would make history for the Rockets, but not in the way every Rockets fan was hoping for. The Rockets came out firing and were up big in the first half. They led by 15 over the defending champs in the first half. Rockets fans are ecstatic, and it is looking more and more likely the Rockets are about to pull off one of the biggest upsets we have seen. But then, everything went wrong with the Rockets. Remember earlier when I mentioned D'Antoni and the Rockets shooting league-high numbers from 3 and Harden going 0 for 11 in a previous game this series? Well, there is a saying around the basketball world that you live by the 3 and die by the 3, and that is exactly what happened in Game 7. From the 6:15 mark in the second quarter until midway through the fourth, the Rockets would go on to miss 27 straight three-pointers. Yes, you heard that correctly, 27. Despite this historic number, the Warriors would go on to win by only 9 points. It took 34 from Durant and 27 from Curry, and 27 straight missed three-pointers in a row for the Warriors to advance to another NBA final. The Rockets went 7-44 from 3 that game. If they had just shot even 25% from 3, this game could have gone completely differently. The Warriors went on to sweep the LeBron-led Cleveland Cavaliers to win back-to-back NBA titles. KD wins his second ring and second Finals MVP, while Curry added his third ring to his collection. This version of the Warriors may have just been the most unstoppable team of all time, but in a different timeline, the Rockets don't miss 27 threes in a row, and the Warriors dynasty may have never happened.